Aggregation alerts are one of the more advanced types of alert offered by AdapTable or Grid extension, and as the name implies, the alert is fired not based just on changes in a single row, but on aggregated rows, on a number of rows together. So this is very useful for things like limits analysis, where you can say, tell me if I've breached my limits, and that's calculated over many rows in your grid. And as you can see, here's a typical example where you could say, for instance, tell me if the sum, so if all my P&Ls are greater than 50 million. And this first function here, sum, can actually be one of 5 different aggregation functions. So you can say, tell me if all of them, that the sum of this is whatever, or if this is the smallest, min, if it's max, the average, and count. And then one other nice little addition to aggregation alerts is a where clause. So as well as saying, tell me if my P&L is greater than 50 million, actually tell me if all the rows where P&L summed together is greater than 50 million, I'm adding a where clause saying I'm only interested though in those rows where the currency is also USD. So let's build a aggregated alert to see how we can do that. Now, like everything in AdapTable, you can do this either at design time or runtime. So let's now create our alert. And as you can see, there's actually 4 different types of alerts you can create in AdapTable, but we're currently interested in the aggregation. And what we want to do is we want to say, tell me, for instance, if all the GitHub stars are greater than 50,000, but only in the rows where the language is HTML. So let's build that rule. So the first thing we need is an aggregated Boolean query. We need sum, and then we want the columns, which is GitHub stars. And then we want to say it's greater than 50,000, but we don't want it in the whole grid. We only want it where the language is HTML. So now we can add a where clause, and in that where clause, we add language equals to HTML. So that's our expression. Some GitHub stars is greater than 50,000 where language equals to HTML. And now you can add all sorts of things. So for instance, we will make this a warning, and we will provide a custom header. And if we wanted to, we could change the message as well. Now let's have some behaviors. So the first thing we'll do is we'll show a notification. So we'll actually see the alert pop up. And in fact, why don't we add a button as well? So why don't we say, let's highlight the row, let's highlight the cell that caused the change. Let's call that button show me, and let's make it neutral. So we've got one button just to say okay, and one show me button. There's other behaviors you can do, but there we are. We've now created our alert. And in fact, what we will do is just to show you how it's working. Let's group by language, and then let's add a sum aggregation. So in fact, we can see that currently GitHub stars is 41,000. So obviously the first thing we know is if I change these, if I make this an enormous number, nothing will happen at all because the where clause was only language equals HTML. But now let's add some of these. So currently that says 19,000. So let's add 5,000 to that to make it 26,000. And of course the alert doesn't fire because it's still under 50,000. But now if I was to change this to 25,000, i.e. take it over my limit, as soon as I press enter, there we are, we get the alert. And because I've got the show me button, I can see the row and the cell which triggered the alert. There's other things as well. There's a lot more, like all these topics in AdapTable, you can add a whole load of extra features and options, but that's an overview of aggregated alerts, alerts that fire looking at not just a single row, but all the rows that make up whichever aggregation you've defined in your alert definition. As always, thank you for watching. If you'd like to learn more, please get in touch and we'll be delighted to give you a personalised demo of AdapTable, or indeed provide you with a free, no obligation trial license.